The ocean is a huge part of our lives. All of us who live in the lower mainland, whether we boat on it, swim in it, gaze at its views, or just take the ferry across it every day. While we all appreciate its beauty, we may not always appreciate the abundance of animals that depend on the health of the ocean. Sadly, most of us are likely familiar with these recent news stories. In early May, a cruise ship pulled into New York Harbor with a 44-foot endangered whale caught on its bow. Also in May, the first sighting in Canadian waters this season of the endangered North Atlantic right whale was reported as entangled. The whale was seen dragging fishing line from her mouth. These are examples of how humans directly impact and inflict harm on marine mammals. We have a responsibility to reduce our harm and help the individual animals who are victims to our actions. Hello, I'm Beatrice Rose. Thank you for coming to my Masterworks presentation, Our Responsibility, Marine Mammal Rescue and Rehabilitation. I have lived on Bowen Island my whole life. Growing up on the West Coast, the ocean has become a hugely important part of my life. Ever since I was little, I've spent lots of my time kayaking, swimming, and exploring the ocean environment. Being in and near the ocean has resulted in my love and curiosity about the animals that live in it. As I've gotten older, I've become more aware of the complexities of marine wildlife. Although this history has upset me, it has also led me to take responsibility. I chose my Masterworks to learn and become personally involved with two leading organizations dedicated to the rescue of marine wildlife. In this presentation, I will cover some of human impacts on marine mammals. I will talk about the change in mindset from hunting to captivity to rehabilitation. And after that, I will talk about my personal experience with two marine wildlife rescue centers. Human impacts on marine mammals. Humans and marine wildlife share a lengthy and complex history, starting in the 11th century with commercial whaling, which dominated the world's trade system until the late 19th century. Overall, commercial whaling had a devastating impact on whale populations, and over 3 million individual whales were hunted. There was a belief that the ocean had an unlimited disposal capacity. It used to be a regular practice for humans to dump plastic and waste into the ocean. Today, greater awareness has meant many countries have stopped this practice, but tons of plastic still ends up in the ocean. In fact, the equivalent of one garbage truck of plastic enters the ocean per minute. This is a major hazard for marine animals who can become entangled or ingest plastic debris, leading to suffocation, starvation, and drowning. Commercial fishing is connected to the decline of many marine mammal species. Advancements in commercial fishing technology have resulted in overfishing and the depletion of food sources of many larger marine mammals. Fishing can result in bycatch, the catching of unwanted sea life. Fishing nets and gear end up lost and abandoned, creating what is called ghost gear. It is estimated that 640,000 tons of ghost gear are abandoned each year. 5 years ago, it was reported that 136,000 seals, and small cetaceans were killed by ghost gear annually. Climate change has two main impacts on the ocean: increased acidification and warming temperatures. This impacts the growth and survival and habit of marine mammal food sources. Marine mammals are having to travel further to find food. That impacts the survival of young seals and sea lions, whose mothers are forced to leave them alone longer and prematurely. Climate change also results in algae blooms, which cause neurological problems for marine mammals. In 2023, 90% of international trade goods were transported by ocean-bound vessels. The noise from vessels affects whales' ability to communicate. Growing evidence shows that vessel noise imitates whale sounds and confuses them. Research is trying to determine if this could be the reason for a larger percent of collisions. The change in mindset. Not long after whaling collapsed, capturing marine wildlife for the public's enjoyment became popular, and aquariums around the world featured captive cetaceans such as orca whales and dolphins. Eventually, public awareness grew as studies revealed concerns about the physical and mental health of captive marine wildlife. This shift in popular opinion away from capturing cetaceans and to release the whales in captivity was reinforced by stories like Free Willy. It is now understood that captivity for any animal is not ideal, and that keeping them in confined areas should only be resorted to when the animal needs rehabilitation and support from humans. My experience. Over the course of the year, I learned about and worked with 2 leading marine wildlife rescue and response centers. The Vancouver Aquarium Marine Mammal Rescue Society, I will refer to it as the Vancouver Rescue Centre, is a registered charity that works in partnership with the Vancouver Aquarium and Department of Fisheries and Oceans. The Vancouver Rescue Centre is known for its innovative marine mammal medical program in response to over 300 marine mammal emergencies each year. Along with the veterinarians, 166 volunteers work at the center. My external advisor, Cassandra, is a research assistant. She's involved with patient care, post-release monitoring, as well as reviewing necropsy results, the examination of an animal after death. The center has developed into the only organization of its kind in Canada, with one of the largest hospitals dedicated to sick, injured, and orphaned marine mammals. They have a full operating room capable of handling medical emergencies from seal pups to full-size sea lions. They have specialized equipment like X-ray machines and oxygen enclosures to supplement and monitor animal oxygen levels. The outside grounds contain tanks and small tubs, including seal pup quarantine area. The whole site can support up to 100+ seal pups, as well as sea lions and even small cetaceans. Seal pups are most commonly admitted to the center because of sickness, injury, or abandonment. Upon admission, seal pups have to be quarantined for 2 weeks. After this, as seal pups are rehabilitated, they go through fish school to teach them to feed as if they were taught by their mothers in the wild. The staff start with feeding the pups a milkfish formula through a tube and manual syringe that goes straight into their stomachs. Once the pups can feed on their own, they are moved to tanks with other seals. There they have to compete to get previously frozen fish to practice for what it will be like out in the wild. In December, I had the opportunity to attend a seal pup release at Porto Cove. The Vancouver Rescue Centre transported the pups to the release in crates in the rescue van. Seals are relatively small compared to other marine mammals, so anesthesia is not usually required for the transportation. At the release location, the crates were unloaded and set at the water's edge. When it was time, volunteers opened the crates and stood back as the seals hopped out and towards the water. After some time, all 6 of the young seals were curiously swimming around and exploring their new environment. On occasion, the Vancouver Rescue Centre attaches a satellite tag to the head of a seal pup. These trackers analyze data on the seal's movement and feeding behavior, allowing the center to expand their rescue response. Kiefer Rock, a young male harbor seal, was part of the group I saw released. Kiefer went through the rehabilitation program and was a perfect candidate for a satellite tag. This is the result of the live tracking of Kiefer Rock. All the red lines you see mark where Kiefer has traveled, so all around Bowen, up the Strait of Georgia, around Texada Island, back across the Strait of Georgia, and is now residing in Navajo. And he's quite small. He's just a little seal, so that's a long way for him. Halfway through this project, I had the incredible experience to have an internship at the Mexico Marine Wildlife Rescue Center. I refer to it as the Mexico Rescue Center. Based out of La Paz, Mexico, is a nonprofit, fully volunteer-run organization that focuses on the rescue of all marine wildlife and specializes in the disentanglement and strandings of large marine mammals. Some of their biggest work is building connections with the local community, including the government, tour operators, and fishing co-ops. So they can share data, gain valuable information, and promote conservation initiatives. There are many organizations around the world that vilify fishermen, saying they are responsible for entanglements. However, fishermen are the Mexico Rescue Center's biggest asset because they often report marine animal strandings and they help the rescue center understand the nature of the fishing gear that might be involved in entanglements. Members from the government authority accompany the Mexico Rescue Center on every rescue and reintroduction mission. The center also has to get permission from the authorities to intervene with any animal. The rescue center is also well connected with the tourism industry. Tour operators often report marine wildlife strandings because they are out on the water constantly. My external advisor at the center is Victoria, a marine biologist who spent 23 years working with marine wildlife. Ricky, Victoria's partner at the center, specializes in the rescue and support of cetaceans and is a member of the Mexican Whale Disentanglement Network. Ricky is also certified as a whale entanglement response instructor by the International Whaling Commission. When I first arrived at the center, their only patient in rehabilitation was a female green sea turtle. She had been entangled in fishing nets and was extremely injured by her efforts to free herself. The scales on her head and shell had been rubbed off by the net, and her front flipper had been torn up. The injuries were so severe that they had to amputate the flipper. She spent the next 2 months in rehabilitation making a good recovery. By the time I arrived in Mexico, the turtle was pretty much fully recovered, and they were planning her release. On my first day, I got to help Ricky and another volunteer, Andre, feed her. She was lifted out of the pool, and a bite block was put in the turtle's mouth to allow a feeding tube to be inserted down her throat. The freshly blended vegetables enriched with protein were then pumped directly into her stomach with a large syringe. On the morning of the turtle's release, Andre, Victoria, and I weighed her, and then in preparation for the boat ride, secured her flippers by wrapping a cloth around her body. We boated out to the location of the release, which was chosen because of the existing healthy turtle population and good food source. Once the turtle was lifted into the water, she swam keenly away. Andre followed her with his drone for a while, and you could see the speedy turtle swimming all around the bay. Here's my footage. Victoria and Ricky, on a monitoring day, and we spotted an entangled sea lion. They took pictures to compare with photos taken before to see if they already knew about the animal or if it was a new entanglement case. A few days later, we went out in search of the same animal. This was another incredible opportunity for me to actually go on a sea lion disentanglement. I got to meet other professionals from government authorities and specialized veterinarians. I got to see the whole procedure, including how they take action on the fly and how the whole response works. The crew was divided into 2 boats, a support boat and a disentanglement response boat. We loaded up the equipment, including nets and a rifle gun, which Ricky would use to dart the sea lion with anesthesia. Just outside of the Bay of La Paz is a large California sea lion nursery. At the island, we spotted one sea lion with fishing gear around its neck. Since it was too windy to use the anesthesia rifle, the team would have to go to shore with nets and try to physically get the animal. Although this method is not unusual for the team, it is not ideal because there is a higher chance of the sea lion escaping. Unfortunately, by the time the team got organized, the sea lion had moved away and we couldn't spot the sea lion anymore. But we soon spotted another entangled sea lion. That side of the rock was protected from the wind, so Ricky was able to use the anesthesia rifle. After the sea lion was darted, we waited at a distance for it to get drowsy. But then it hopped off the rocks and started swimming. The dart had not injected the animal with sufficient anesthesia drugs. Ricky had to dart it a second time once the sea lion returned to shore. She acted slightly stunned, but then quickly began to seem sleepy. We approached the rock so that one of the disentanglement team officials could go to land and catch the sea lion with a net. But when he jumped off the boat, a stampede of sea lions charged right over top the sea lion we were trying to get, causing one of the anesthesia darts to be knocked out. Because of the anesthesia, it is a risk sea lions can fall asleep in the water and drown. Luckily, she was floating near the surface. The government official in the support boat managed to scoop her up with the help of Ricky in the response boat. It is necessary to plan every cut to ensure all the gear is removed. This is to avoid any pieces being left to become infected and cause further damage to the animal. After the line was removed, the team tagged the sea lion And then the veterinarian injected the sea lion with a slow-release antibiotic as a precaution against any further infections. After, a reversal medication for the anesthesia was injected. Then the team stood back and allowed the sea lion to wake up and scooch off the boat. Whale disentanglement. Disentangling a whale is a lengthy, complex, and dangerous. So I did not get to go out on this kind of trip, but I got to experience some of the background work. The Mexico Rescue Center is part of an international network. Whale disentanglement teams work all up and down the Pacific coast along the whale migratory route. So if there is a whale that is heading south from BC and a whale disentanglement professionals from here didn't successfully disentangle the animal, they will track the whale and notify the next team down the coast. Whale entanglements are urgent. The reason is it is very easy to lose the chance to help the whale because of how far and fast they travel. The first step when a whale entanglement is reported is to notify the team. The Mexico Rescue Center's own whale disentanglement team is made up of trained volunteers, captains, and government officials. The second step is to locate the whale and assess the animal. Typically, Ricky's team would have gotten pictures of the whale before going out on the water, so they will have an idea of what the whale is entangled in. Through video footage, Ricky and his team can tell how distressed the whale is, if the animal is acting okay and able to surface for air, or if the animal is struggling, not able to swim and being dragged down. Assessing the situation beforehand helps the team approach the case properly. This is a picture from Ricky, and he's planning what he will do to disentangle this whale. So the yellow is where he's planning to cut, and so on. Out on the water, the first step is to approach the whale and throw a specially made metal grapple attached to a long rope so that it catches onto the excess nets and lines trailing off the whale. The response team will start attaching floats to the rope in order to slow down the whale. Once the whale is slowed down, the response boat will get up alongside the whale and start strategically cutting the gear entangling the whale. They start with cutting close to the body of the whale, and the weight from the trailing gear would help pull the rest off. Once the whale is free, the response boat will monitor it for a while as the whale continues its journey. I started this project by researching the many ways that human activities negatively impact the health of marine mammals around the world. Thankfully, increased awareness of these species has led to some positive changes. There are regulations being passed by governments around the globe to promote a safer environment for whales and other marine wildlife. There is a worldwide pursuit to educate people, so everyone can be responsible and aware of the struggles marine wildlife go through. I believe that many of these actions are making a difference, as you can see by the increased sightings of marine mammals here in Howe Sound. Both the seal pup reintroduction and facility tour with the Vancouver Rescue Center and the weeks I got to spend at the Mexico Rescue Center were absolutely incredible experiences that broadened my knowledge to a much deeper understanding than I could have ever achieved through just research. The experiences illuminated the realities of marine wildlife rescue and response. I was surprised and saddened to learn how often entanglements and incidences like boat strikes happen. Despite this, there are organizations made up of people like Cassandra, Victoria, and Ricky, who dedicate so much time and effort to this work. These people and organizations are connected to an ever-growing international effort focused on the protection of marine wildlife and the ocean environment. With these experts leading the way and the increased awareness, there is hope for for marine animals in their ocean homes. The hard past and ongoing suffering humans have inflicted on marine wildlife is our responsibility to reverse. I've been so inspired by the things I have learned and the people I've met by working on this project. There's still much to learn and much to be done. Scientists, researchers, and volunteers are putting in an enormous amount of effort into reducing the impacts of humans on marine mammals, and I would love to be a part of it. I want to thank the people who helped me with this project. Thank you to my external advisor, Cassandra, for inviting me on the Seal Pup release and giving me an amazing tour of the facility, and for all the time you spent giving me excellent knowledge, feedback, and ideas throughout the year. Thank you to my external advisor, Victoria, for letting me visit the Mexico Rescue Center and for inviting me on your rescue and release missions, and for all the time you spent explaining everything. It has been amazing building this connection with you and your organization. Thank you to Ricky for sharing so much of your knowledge with me and for being so inspiring with the incredible work you do. Thank you, Andre, for teaching me how to fly a drone and being an inspiring role model. Thank you to my parents for all the advice and for helping me with my paper and presentation, and for letting me go to Mexico, and for being so supportive throughout the whole project. Thank you, Jen, there we are, for all the check-ins and keeping everyone on track, as well as organizing the whole Masterworks program. And of course, thank you to Pam for giving me so many ideas, helping me with my paper, and for caring so deeply about my topic. And thank you for coming to my Masterworks.
I would like to say, Ms. Rose, that was an excellent presentation. And we're so glad that we got to be brought onto your journey, because those videos were amazing and all of your experience just built it into an incredible presentation. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
We are going on to question period. So the first questions are from your advisors. Pam, go ahead.
Sure, I'll start. Wow, this Rose. I have been on this journey with you, and I know you wrote an incredible lengthy paper, and the hardest challenge you had was narrowing it down, and you did an incredible job of showing us, teaching us today.
Thank you.
At the beginning of your presentation, I felt upset and devastated by all the bad news, all the terrible things that humans have done, and you were revealing all these things. And by the end, I felt so much hope. So thank you for that. Sharing with us I was so inspired by the passion of the people who dedicate their lives to this work, and by you for caring. And it's really necessary work. So thank you. You did so much on this project, such a lengthy paper, trips on rescues, visits to the Vancouver Center for tours, and all the way to Mexico. And I know that you did so many things in Mexico. You really focused on the rescues, but can you tell us a little bit more about that place and what some of your jobs were?
Yeah. Well, I did a ton of things. I was there for 3 weeks. Throughout the whole time, I just got to meet like a whole bunch of people, all the volunteers there. The first day, we went out on this monitoring day, and I got to meet some work colleagues of the rescue centers who were visiting all the way from Scotland, and they were there as part of a project on trying to lessen the abilities of whale entanglements. And so that was really interesting, just because they're from a total different area in the world and working on solving the same issues. And then, I got to properly interview Victoria and Ricky, and then Ricky showed me all his whale disentanglement and sea lion disentanglement gear. I didn't get to go into all the different tools, but I got to try some of that out. And yeah, and then actually I have a picture of, this is a magnet I worked on when I was there. Me and Victoria had a bunch of like office days, and she gave me this project to do for them, which is making a magnet for boats and marinas. And so it's so anyone, if they see an entangled or injured or stranded marine wildlife, they can get help. So there's a government phone number, their rescue hotline, and the QR code goes to their website and like a step-by-step on how to respond to that. And then we just had a bunch of day trips, and on my last day we went out to this sandbar and right in the middle of La Paz Bay, and it's like a really area that's prone for marine mammal strandings because of winds and currents, so we just went there to check if there were any. There weren't. But yeah, it was just really neat to hear all their stories and stuff. Yeah.
Sure. So I have a couple of questions for you, Ms. Rose. First of all, thank you again for reaching out to us and coming to see the center and coming on the release with us and just being interested in what we're doing and everything that other centers like us, including Mexican Rehabilitation Center, are doing, and informing everybody about what you've learned. So what is the most surprising thing that you came across in the project?
I think the most surprising thing was just how abundant cases like marine, entanglements and boat strikes are. Just an example is when I went out on the sea lion disentanglement, we were looking for a sea lion that we had seen the previous day. And we didn't end up seeing that one. And we saw one, we tried to get it, didn't get it, and I was thinking like, oh, well, that's it. We tried, we're gonna go home, or we're gonna like wait for it to get out of the water or something. But no, we found another one. So that's just like a glimpse into how many entanglements there really are. And then with the Vancouver Rescue Center, like you guys, hundreds of seal pups in like a season. So through my research, I kind of understood that they're like rising cases and it's not a rare thing, but actually being there, like it is literally something that's happening all the time, and it's right there in front of us.
And then my other question is, do you have one kind of take-home message for your audience, something important that you'd like them to take away with them today after hearing everything you've talked about?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing's a take-home, I think, but the main thing I'd say is just what these organizations are doing is really, really important. And when you compare like the rescues they do and how many animals they help compared to the overall like number of entanglements and strandings and stuff, it's kind of like, well, it isn't like, are they actually helping? Is it? But they are, and those individuals like matter, and it starts with individuals. And I think once you start, there's like an inspiring, like it inspires movement, like everywhere. Yeah.
Ms. Rose, I have a question from Victoria, your advisor in Mexico. She said, what similarities did you see between the rescue and rehabilitation cases between Vancouver and Mexico? And what role do you think these organizations will play in the future, given the increase in incidental entanglements and climate change?
So similarities in the rescue, I think both organizations are really, really focused on the three sections of like rescuing, rehabilitation, and then release. Like all their animals go back to the wild. It's not, like that. And they're also really focused on just the welfare and well-being of the animals that are brought in. And then something that's not so much with their like rescue and stuff, just how they run, is they're both really connected with the governments and like the whole community that surrounds them. The Vancouver place is the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and the Mexico Rescue Center, their whale disentanglement team and sea lion disentanglement team are made up of tons of government officials. So and it comes with differences too, with the similarities. But yeah, those are the main similarities, I'd say.
And then, do you see a role that they're going to play in the future?
Yeah, I think, well, because of climate change and all of that, definitely their jobs are going to increase, I think. And yeah, just overall, a lot more rescues are going to be necessary. But I think they just need to continue what they're doing, which is just going out there, being there, rescuing them. And I learned this especially with the Mexico place, that they make a point of sharing their rescue stories and their rehabilitation stories on social media or whatever, just to get that following, and so people can just like get a glimpse on social media of what they're doing and see that this is happening.
It's also really interesting, that collaboration that you were talking about with the community and the fisher people, to get data and also to help try to solve the problems.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So there's lots of questions from the floor, so come on up with me. My question for you is, how does sea lion anesthesia work?
Yeah, so naturally, sea lions, their brains don't fully shut down. When they sleep, they keep a level of alertness. And with the anesthesia, it kind of alters that. So the sea lions can actually, they're not totally brain dead, but like just like, totally asleep, basically. And in the video I showed when we first got the sea lion, Victoria, she was like, it breathed. So they're always monitoring that they're breathing. And I'm not sure what specific anesthesia Ricky was using on that day, because there are like a ton of different anesthesias specifically made for sea lions, that are all just trying to kind of lessen the possibility of like the sea lions and that their brain shutting down. Yeah.
I wanted to ask if there was some research being done to lessen the danger of fishing nets. Maybe there's some ways that nets can biodegrade or something like that over long term.
Yeah.
If you explored that at all.
Yeah, I actually didn't have much time to explore that, but that was a question I came up with. I'm like, oh, I wonder what they're actually doing. So I just did a quick research, and it's not on, it's a design more for like prawn and lobster and crab fishing, that instead of having like a crate at the bottom of the ocean and then like a rope up to a float, there's like this mechanism that's a reel basically for the rope, and it goes down with the crate and sits at the bottom of the ocean, and then the fisherman or whoever is using it has like this little tracker, and then when they want to retrieve the trap, they just kind of, they press a button and the reel undoes and goes to the surface. So that's to prevent if whales are just swimming, because those traps can be hundreds and hundreds of feet, and they swim and get entangled in that. So I didn't do any research on nets and stuff, but that's definitely something I'm planning on looking into more.
Ms. McBurney.
Lovely presentation, Ms. Rose. I was wondering what you're planning to do with your learning in the future.
Yeah, well, what I just said was how fishing gear and stuff is being changed and altered to lessen the impact of whale entanglement and stuff. I want to look more into acidic oceans and the impacts that has on marine mammal, like their brain and neurological. I didn't get much time to look into that, but it has very interesting effects on their actual behavioral stuff. And I'd love to volunteer at the Vancouver Rescue Center. When I'm the age, I can do that. And go back to the Mexico Rescue Center and volunteer there. And I really want to look into whale disentanglement, and to do the training for that is something I'm definitely aiming to do. Yeah.
Ms. Redicott, come on.
Amazing job, I suppose. Do you think this will ever become your career in the future, and like this specifically, something else? And then also, how long does it take to untangle the different animals?
Yeah, I'll do the second question. So first, our sea lion disentanglement, that was basically an all-day thing. Whales can be days and weeks and stuff. It's a long time. Ricky, when I was there, the first day I was there, he went out and searched for a whale, didn't find it, went out a different day. I'm pretty sure, didn't find it. So it can take a really long time. It all depends on how the process actually goes. And then the first question, I do want to do this in the future. I don't know if it will be my main career or anything, but definitely a side thing. And it's a pretty involving thing though, so it might become my full-time career. Yeah.